Hi guys, this is Terry Clark from faithandfit.org, and I want to welcome you guys to my vlog on relationships God's way. So last week we were talking about self and having a relationship with one's self. And so we also did discuss the importance of having a relationship with God first. That relationship with God is permanent. It started before we were born and it will continue after we die. Okay, the relationship that we have with ourselves is the second most permanent relationship we can have. That relation began the day we were born, and it will end the day that we die. Okay, and then after that, we have these other relationships, and there are many different other relationships, and so that's what I want to talk about today. I don't want to get into those specific relationships, but I want to talk about them in generality because we have to determine, the right mix and makeup of those relationships in order for us to have a healthy and productive life. So, what do those relationships look like? Well, we have personal relationships, and those personal relationships can be anything for familiar family relationships to relationship with friends, also intimate relationships with significant others, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives. Okay, and so having a right mix of those types of relationships, personal relationships, figuring out, well, how much time do we have for family? Okay, who in our family do we want to be connected to and relate to? Okay, and it's not just a given. A lot of people say, well, I'm just going to have a relationship with my family no matter what. Well, we have to remember the Bible talks about a lot of family relationships. In fact, one of the first family relationships that the Bible talked about was the relationship between Cain and Abel. Those two guys were brothers, and Cain murdered his brother Abel. So we have to understand that not all family relationships are healthy or going to help us. Okay, in some relationships, not only have murder happened, but in some relationships, rape has also happened too. One of David's sons raped his sister Tamar, and then his brother Absalom killed him in revenge or in a fit of rage because of that. So we have to understand that every relationship has to be worked for and every relationship has to be evaluated. It's not just the relationships with family, but it also the relationship with friends and also intimate relationships. There are no free rides. It is difficult trying to figure out personal relationships because sometimes we don't always get them right. And we do have to pay for it when we're not good at picking relationships. So it's not just all the other person's bad. And sometimes that's a great way of looking at things and saying, they're just bad. I don't know why I keep getting a hold of rotten people. Well, you do know why you're getting a hold of rotten people. You're getting a hold of rotten people because you're choosing rotten people. So we have to figure that out. Now, in addition to personal relationships, we also have these professional relationships. And so, what do professional relationships look like? So, if we run a business, we've got employees. If we run a business, we might be collaborating with other people. In addition to that, if we're working for somebody as an employee, then we have an employer, and then we have coworkers that we have to deal with. So having relationships with these people are very important because having relationships with these people are going to affect our career and how we do things. And so we have to figure out, well, how many of these types of relationships we want to have, and how are we going to, or how much time are we going to spend cultivating and nurturing these kind of relationships. In addition to professional relationships, we also have the financial ones. Okay, so we have financial relationships with banks. If we borrow money for our house, we borrow money for our cars, that kind of stuff. We've got credit cards. Okay, so those are going to be financial relationships. Also, if we have creditors, people that we have to pay, or just vendors, people that we buy stuff from. Like a lot, we all have a relationship with Walmart or Target or Amazon. Okay, so those are all relationships as well. And we have to figure out, how much we're going to spend with those relationships. Now, those kind of relationships are easier because they don't require emotions. They only require money and figuring out, well, how much money are we going to spend with Walmart? How much money are we going to spend with Amazon? How much money are we going to spend in our fitness store if we're trying to do health and fitness stuff? But these are all the types of relationships that we have. We're going to have personal relationships that deal with family, friends, and significant others. We're going to have professional relationships. They're going to deal with businesses as well as employers and employees and coworkers. We're also going to have financial relationships as well that deals with borrowing money and financial transactions and stuff. And we have to figure out what is the right mix of those relationships for our life. And it looks different for everybody. One of the things I'm not here to do is to give you relationship advice on your relationships. Nobody can do that for you. Okay, in order for that to be done, people would have to know your mind, and then they would also have to know the mind of the people that you're dealing with. And we just don't have access to that kind of information. God doesn't do that either. All he does is he puts out in the Bible how relationships are and how relationships are supposed to be carried. So he gives you an ideal of what a relationship should look like. And then he gives you rules, or he gives you a framework for which you should have relationships. And so part of that is understanding boundaries, your boundaries, understanding their boundaries, and also understanding expectations. What do you want? What do you want to get from the relationship? So it's get and give, because a relationship is about a relay. It's about moving back and forwards and understanding who you're in that relationship with. Inside the word relationship, it has two words. It has relay, which means to hand back and forward, and then it has ship in it, which means that you're going to be there together and you guys are going to a destination together. And you have to figure out what that looks like. Not having the right mix of relationships, or having types of relationships that you can't handle or you're not meant for, is going to cause problems for you. So a big part of that journey is to just know free rise. You've got to sit down and evaluate your life. And part of that evaluation process is sitting down and thinking about the people that are in your life. Some of the people need to stay. Some of the people need to go. Some of the people you need to sit down and have a conversation with and redefine what those boundaries are looking like. Or don't be afraid to ask for things. Okay, if you can't ask a person for something, let's say, for instance, if you're a guy and it's important that you get a back massage every week or once a month, that's something of importance to you. Okay, it doesn't matter if other people don't think that's important. There's somebody out there that will do that for you. Go find that person. Okay, if you got somebody that's not giving you what you want, let them know, hey, listen, these are the kind of things I want. And we have to do that, whether it's personal, whether it's business, whether it's financial, whether it's professional. Same way on a job. If you're on a job and they're not paying you enough, you can always go in and ask for a raise. If they don't want to give you a raise, then start looking for another job. Okay. All these relationships are voluntary. You do not have to do anything. Okay. You're not you're not a hostage. Nobody's trying to make you stick around. Well, people may try to make you stick around. Okay. But at the end of the day, you don't have to. Okay. But you do need to sit down. Okay, because it is your life, because the Bible says, what man go out and build a building without first sitting down and counting the cost? That he is not able to finish, and then his neighbors will begin to pick at him and make fun of him. So you don't want to be that person. So you have to figure out. Now, if you can't handle certain kind of relationship, let's say if you're the kind of person where you don't like to sit down and talk with people about things, and it bothers you to have to address issues with people. A personal relationship, an intimate relationship with someone that you don't know and that you're getting to know, and it could be that they never knew you. You could be with somebody for 20 years, you don't know them, and they don't know you. But if you can't sit down and say, hey, tell me about yourself, I want to learn you, or I thought I knew you, but I'm kind of realizing that maybe you're something different than what I thought you were. So I want to try to get a better understanding of you so that we can relate, so that we can have a better relationship. Sometimes you have to have those hard conversations. If you can't have that hard conversation with somebody, it's time to move on. It's time to say, hey, look, um, I like you as a person. You're a really great person. And they could be a really great person. They just may not be your great person. And at that point, then you have an obligation to say, hey, listen, this is not going to work. And it's not always because they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Sometimes it's because you can't handle your part. And there's nothing wrong with that. I go to the weight room all the time. There are guys in there benching 400 or 500 pounds. That's not for me. And I will let you know that up front. I am not 20 years old anymore. I'm 58. And so at 58, I'm going to let people know what I can and can't do. And it's no crime that you can't do certain things. So let's say, for instance, If you're a woman and a guy says, hey, I want you to go out, work a job. I want you to have 3 or 4 kids. I want you to take care of all those kids. I want you to clean the house. I want you to compliment me and stroke my ego. And he's like, well, that's too much for me. Okay. I don't want to have kids. Well, then there's a guy out there for you that doesn't want to have kids either. And that's who you should go and find. Now, sometimes with relationships, you may sit down and talk about it, especially if you're crazy about the person and you really want to stay connected with them. You can talk to them about it. You can say, hey, listen, let's talk about this. I don't feel comfortable, signing up for this knowing full well I can't do it. This is what I can bring to the table. Do you think this will work for you? And that is always the big ticker. A lot of times we want to talk about relationships and how things ought to be and how things should be. And we don't realize that the people involved in the relationship determine that. Okay. We can talk about traditional relationships and how things work traditionally, but relationships are determined by the people in them. And so if you're in a relationship and counting on somebody just to agree to tradition, they don't have to agree to anything in terms of a relationship. Okay. They don't have to agree to honesty. They don't have to agree to bringing anything to the table. I've seen people where they bring nothing to the table. They want you to pay for and take care of everything. Okay, if that's not for you, if you can't do that or you disagree with it, then you need to let them know. Okay, but at the end of the day, don't blame everything on a person or take it. Don't act like somebody's committed a crime because they're not the person for you. Don't mistreat people either. You can let people know who you are and what you want from relationships respectfully. And if they can't do that, then you can let them know that you're going to leave respectfully without hating them or being angry with them. Never be angry or hate somebody because they can't be what you want them to be. You're not God. Okay. Also, they are not God. So don't let anybody force to try to make you be something or do something that you're not capable of being. That's why it is very important that you have a relationship with God first and that you have a relationship with yourself second. Because if you're not healthy, all of your unhealthiness is going to spill over into any relationship you have, whether it's personal, professional, whether it's business, whether it's financial. All those relationships are going to suffer because 50% of those relationships are what you bring to the table. And if you're sick, then you're bringing 50% sickness to that relationship. And so you want to be healthy. Okay, and that means understanding yourself, understanding your boundaries, and that things and what you need from relationships, and also what you're capable of. That's a big part of relating and dealing with other people. Then you sit down and you figure that out and what that looks like. And you should be doing that kind of evaluation on everybody in your life, including your job, including businesses that you have relationships with. For instance, if you've got car insurance and you think your car insurance is too high, there's nothing wrong with looking for new car insurance. You can do that. You can go out and look and see if you can find something cheaper. You can also call up your car insurance company and say, explain to me, why is my car insurance so high? And I can't afford to pay this kind of car insurance. That's where you're sitting up telling them what you can't do or what you can do. And that's a big part of any relationship. And just like you would call up the car insurance company and say, hey, listen, I can't afford this car insurance. You could call up a friend and say, hey, listen, I can't afford this friendship. Okay, I can't loan you money every week or every month. Hey, I can't, sit here and listen to you talk to me that way. Okay, so you know what you're capable of. And once again, it's not that other person's bad, because sometimes when you tell people, say, hey, listen, I don't like the way you're talking to me, they think that they've said something wrong. And that's not always the case. Okay. You may have been a person who comes from a history of past where you were abused as a kid or you were emotionally or verbally abused. And so any kind of sharp-witted conversation is going to rub you the wrong way. You can't handle it. And there's nothing wrong with you not being able to handle it. You've went through some stuff. Okay, and you need somebody to be more kind and generous. There's nothing wrong with you wanting something kind and generous. There's nothing wrong with us wanting anything. Okay, never let somebody shame you because you want something. Okay, or you need something. Okay, you're different from everyone else. Okay, and that's why it's important that you understand yourself and have a healthy relationship with yourself so you can start to set those boundaries and start to set those expectations and things of that nature. And if you're listening to anybody or taking advice from people, take advice on framework. Okay, take advice on, understanding principles and just generalizations about relationships, but never take advice from don't ever let somebody tell you what you can handle and what you can't handle. You're grown. You should know what you can and can't handle. Whether it's on your end or whether it's on the end of the person that you're interacting or dealing with. Okay, so this is going to be, we're going to spend a couple of weeks talking about the others. Again, we're going to go in and we're going to pick them apart one at a time. But I thought it was important that we have this conversation first on relationships just in general, because not all of these relationships are going to be available to all of us. And then we also have to determine what percentage of each of these types of relationships we want. We're not bad for figuring that out. There's nothing wrong with you figuring out that you can't lift as much, or you're not as fast as, or you're not as strong as, or you can't endure as much as someone else can, or you're not as tall or short. And the reason why I'm using all these examples is because I want you to understand that you're going to have some limitations. Okay, all human beings do. And that's fine. And those limitations are going to spill over into your relationships. And so what you need is going to be different than what other people are needing. But we got to first sit down and count that cost and figure out, what it is that we need. And then we have to be honest with other people. Don't let people shame us or guilt us or make us feel bad for wanting the best life and wanting to relate to people that we can honestly relate to and that we can honestly benefit from. And that, not only that we can just receive things from, but also that we can give things to as well. Give you another example. Let's say someone needs a bunch of your time and you work and you just don't have the time for that. Okay, there's somebody out there for them now. Don't get me wrong. There's somebody out there for all of us and all the things that we want. Okay, and one of the best things that we can do is free people so that they can go find their best person, and also so that we can go find our best person too. There's nothing wrong with that as long as we're not talking to people mean, rude, or nasty, mistreating people. I see a lot of times when people break from relationships, they just talk about and mistreat the other person. That's still a human being you're dealing with. Okay, and okay, great. They messed up their life. They went to jail. They don't have a good job. They're still human. Okay, they're trying now. Okay, and with them trying now, they don't need you bashing them or going around being angry with them because they're not that person for you. Okay, so let's just understand, each other and try to be kinder to each other and understanding what relationships really are. These types of relationships are really going to challenge us, and they're going to show us what kind of Christians we are. Because there's a lot of people that be talking about they're Christians and they talk so mean, nasty, and harsh to other people. You can't even see the Christian in them the way they talk to you. Okay, and so we want to make sure that we're not doing that kind of stuff with people. There are people that just making up stuff where it's like, oh, I don't like the way you said that, or I don't like that you're not doing this, and how dare you not call me every morning. Okay, well, if the person can, they will. If they can't, they can't. But getting angry with somebody over something like that and talking about them and emotionally abusing them is not the way to go. All right, guys, so that's going to wrap it up today. I hope I said something interesting and gave you enough information to think about in terms of relating to other people. Um, if you like this type of content, feel free to subscribe. If you like something that I said today, definitely click that like button. If you got something you would like to share about relationships, definitely put it in the comment section. We're on this journey together, trying to relate to each other and have a better life. And so we can do that by talking about relationships and talking about how we're interacting with each other. Remember, if you want more content like this, definitely subscribe. Also, feel free to join me over on my website, faithandfit.org, where I provide a lot of content on relationships and just, having a healthy and happy life in general. All right, guys, be blessed. Take care and have a great day.